the boss's pet ocelot needs to walk off the 4 henchmen he already ate, you hire the part-time henchman. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
And Casey.
Oh my god, I'm so tired. Fanime kind of wiped me out, but I just caught up on my sleep. How's everybody else doing?
I did not do anything fun like that, so I'm all caught up, except I'm coming down from a sickness.
Oh.
Oh no.
Yeah, some bug got a hold of me. I don't know what it is, but it made it difficult to work or do anything. I don't know. I just felt like 10 pounds of wet cement in a bag. It was pretty bad.
You know, the sad part is when people tell me they've come down with a bug, the first thing I think about is like Netflix's Stranger Things.
Oh no.
That is unfortunate.
Yeah, it brings forth a whole bunch of unfortunate mental images.
God, what was the name of that bug? It had a name, didn't it?
You know, I don't remember what it was called in the second season. Dart, actually. It was short for D'Artagnan. Oh my god, I do remember.
Yeah.
Yes, Dart.
D'Artagnan.
There we go.
Wow, that was funny. I thought I didn't know that, but okay.
Then your brain kicked in.
Yeah. All right. Enough Mountain Dew, everything will work. How about you, Joanna? How you doing?
It's been a Monday, but it's over, so mostly.
Now I have this image of you sitting there with this giant Garfield mask on. What is going on?
Oh, I've never liked Mondays or
the-
mornings.
I'm just thinking I have the worst word associations going on here.
No, I agree with Garfield. Mondays and raisins. They're the pits.
That means she's going to be sitting at the dinner
No.
table. Her husband's going to sit down, so then she knocks it off the table and just says, cook something better.
No, I'm the one that cooks, but,
Oh,
whatever.
okay.
I might knock it off the table if, he puts ramen in front of me or something.
Okay,
Anyway.
I'm not going to make assumptions. Hashtag feminism. It's all cool. No, actually, the past week, I've had this sudden urge. I've gone back into my PS4. I've been playing, or replaying Kingdom Hearts lately.
Nice.
Oh, you trying to get your game on for Kingdom Hearts 3? I'm assuming that comes out soon, right?
We still don't know. Every place I've gone says they expect it out this year, but that's all they know. And every time I hear something like that, all I can think is, yeah, I think that game has been expected out this year for the past 6 years. So that's wonderful.
Huh. I've been freeing up my hard drive space for Go Not Go's game Vampire that's coming out tomorrow, along with the new expansion for Star Trek Online, Victory is Life.
Wow.
Yep.
I
got plenty of stuff to do tomorrow.
I guess I just tend to play these things more by ear. When a new game comes out, that's when I go in and say, okay, so now what do I get rid of?
Yeah, Vampire is actually made by the same people that did Life is Strange, which I don't know if you've ever played it or not. It is one of those games that's considered a must-play. Everybody needs to play at least some of it.
Yeah, but isn't Life is Strange like more of a visual novel than a game?
Yes, it is, but it's really well made.
Okay. I haven't bothered so far.
Man, I wish I had time to game.
Everybody has time to game. We just need to know what else to get out of our lives.
I've already sacrificed enough sleep.
Well,
There is no such thing.
Life is Strange is definitely an emotional gut punch, so be prepared.
Or I could just go watch Infinity Wars again.
This is quite true. Too soon, Joanna.
But I don't want to go.
See, it's funny.
Oh.
Yeah, it's too bad about David Tennant. But, actually, I saw an interview with Chris Hemsworth. He said that Avengers 4 is going to be even more emotional than Infinity War.
Oh,
God,
man.
I saw something fairly similar from our DJ on that same front.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I still have expectations as to what's going to happen, but that would be a way too much to get into here.
I'll say this: do not trust a single thing that the Avengers directors are saying, because I've already spotted at least one outright lie, and that's when they say that not only was Star-Lord not be redeemed, and I'm going to try to dance around spoilers too much. Not only will he never be redeemed, but the status that he is in the Avengers 3 will not be changed, which is complete horseshit. You ever seen an interview with Chris Pratt? You see him outright having to dodge around if he's going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 or if he's going to be in Avengers 4. Yeah. Don't trust the Avengers directors. Don't listen to anything they tell you.
God, if I've
Yeah, I've
learned
heard a few misdirections on that front.
If I learned anything from the latest blockbusters, is don't trust trailers, but that's a whole other conversation as well.
These are the same guys that told everybody that Spider-Man was not going to be in Civil War.
Yeah. But I don't, you're talking about a bunch of guys who weave tales of fantasy for a living. Why would you ever trust them?
Well, that's quite true. But by and large, during interviews, most directors will try to be at least evasive, if not truthful. Very rarely do you ever see them actually outright lie.
Have you ever dealt with a Disney sniper? That may be safer.
Oh, what?
A Disney sniper. See, I'm convinced sooner or later someone's going to trip up, like in the middle of a late night with Jimmy Fallon. They're going to say one thing, like, I don't know, off the top of my head, like Benedict Cumberbatch accidentally reveals, like, the plot of the next Avengers film. Then all of a sudden you'll see this red dot of light slowly trail from his sternum up to his forehead, and then you'll have about 3 seconds to cut away.
Benedict Cumberbatch would probably be the least likely to do that. Have you ever seen him in interviews with Tom Holland?
I'm just giving you an example. I mean, I'm not saying I picked anybody.
I've seen a montage video where he's always sitting next to Tom Holland. And Tom
ready
Holland
to put his hand over his mouth.
Exactly, because Holland is notorious about dropping spoilers.
Well, that's the British version of Disney censorship. That's the polite version.
The polite version. Or I'll answer that, often interrupting him before he can even answer a question.
Yeah, Tom Holland would be the one to spill the beans.
He really would.
Well, the subject of this week is DC Comics Power Girl, the first 7 parts of the Power Trip trade paperback. We'll get to that after we get through the news of the week, and we'll start off with Marvel comic news. It's where we talk about the Disney-owned company and their characters and storylines coming out. The editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, C.B. Sapolsky, you familiar with him?
Yep.
That's one yep and one...
Nope, I don't know the name.
Okay. Sapolsky was known for picking up their overseas talent. He was a writer for a while, then he was a little bit of an editor. He specialized in developing overseas talent, and he is now the editor-in-chief. He's one of the guys primarily in charge of Marvel Comics. Right. About a week after he took the job, though, his unfortunate history started to pour out. I take it, Joanna, you've never heard of the writer Akira Yoshida?
That actually sounds familiar.
See, that's where I'd start to draw a blank.
Okay. See, you ought to draw a blank. And the reason why is because Akira Yoshida is a name that C.B. Sapolsky wrote under.
Oh, okay.
Oh, my bad.
Apparently, C.B. Sapolsky is calling to tell me how much he hates my guts right now.
They're listening. They're always listening.
Sorry, I should have muted my phone beforehand. That's my fault. So
okay. See, the problem was, though, not that Sapolsky had a pseudonym. There was a couple problems. One, we live in an era where people are trying to be more racially sensitive, so this was just kind of a general faux pas. But the other problem was that Sapolsky, during the time he was writing, doubled down on it by releasing statements under the name Akira Yoshida, implicating that he and Yoshida are two entirely separate people. He basically made up a fake name, and then he also kind of touted Yoshida's ability as a Japanese writer, which he was he wasn't Japanese at all.
So what? I don't understand what he gained. I'm confused, Jeremy.
He wanted to write stories of a more Japanese style or Asian style bent, so instead of just kind of writing stories under his name and trying to do it, he decided to make up this fake pseudonym and character that he could write these stories under.
Well,
The thing that kind of... I was going to say, the thing that kind of draws all this out is about 7 months after this whole thing started, Sapolsky has finally released a statement kind of walking back this situation a bit. Believe it or not, after all this time with people getting upset, he really hasn't addressed the whole thing for the most part. Sapolsky was on CBS this morning, for what reasons I don't know, but they did bring up the Akira Yoshida stuff. And he said, quote, "I've always wanted to write and tell stories, and it was a different time in cultural politics. And I made some very bad choices at that time. Ones I regret and I've made since made amends. Well, actually, I need to go back. And I've made very bad choices at that time. Ones that I regret and that I've made amends for and I've been working to, really kind of put behind me. We're 100% committed to diversity. Marvel is the world outside your window, and we want not only our characters, but our creative talent to reflect that world, and it hasn't been an easy road, to be honest with you," unquote. it's one of those statements that's kind of an apology without an apology.
Hmm.
It's I don't quite know what to make of all of it. It sounds like he sort of regrets what he did, but doesn't quite. And I do agree that cultural politics have changed quite a bit since the time he did this in the mid-2000s. I just don't quite know what the proper road is. I feel like there should be more of an apology, but it's hard for me to say exactly for what.
Yeah, it doesn't sound very heartfelt.
No, it sounds like towing a political line, really.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't have much beyond that. Casey sounds like he's gotten a bit of an opinion on this.
Well, I'm not really sure what the stigma is for American writers in Japan. I know that in some countries, who the writer is, their nationality and such is important. And unfortunately, I don't really know if that really carries any weight in Japan. And I know that Japan, by and large, embraces a lot of American culture in several aspects of it. So I don't know if that was a factor or not.
I think they used to. I think Japan used to Major League adopt American culture, granted about the same time Des Moines does, really. But I think Japan, in its sense, has really developed its own sort of culture. I mean, granted, a lot of it has to do with, a level of cuteness, and since Hello Kitty became a cultural revolution about 6-7 years ago, I guess this is just one of the more complicated issues that's kind of hard to parse out in very simple terms. So, some of this has to do with the idea that we need to get more types of races and nationalities involved in all levels of entertainment in America, simply because some people accidentally or by omission by certain unwelcoming individuals are left behind, and I get that. But speaking as a black person, it's also a case of you can't just hire people simply because of their race, even if you're trying to include more. Sometimes you got to let the art develop who gets the job.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally, that's totally fair. And in a perfect world, that's the way it would be.
Yeah, and I get that not all people are getting the chances they deserve just because some people don't see the art, they see the race. The problem is trying to figure out who has this job because they're talented and who has their job because they're a hire.
But I mean, when I see something like this, my first impression is that's what he was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any other reason why he would do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like I said, I don't want to get mired into this, but discussing it a little, at least we're just trying to help bring it all to light and figure it out.
Right.
New teasers have been released for the Infinity Wars event coming in Marvel Comics this July, except both teasers involve pairs of individuals that you wouldn't expect to find together for most reasons. The first one is a teaser that features Adam Warlock and Thanos apparently standing on the same side of something.
That is not completely unheard of. Adam Warlock and Thanos have worked together in the past.
I agree. Adam Warlock has not been very visible in Marvel until recently. He was in a couple specials, and now he's recently been reintroduced in the Infinity Countdown event. He supposedly is going to be one of the people holding one of the Infinity Stones going into it. But
that sounds legit.
A lot of people are concerned about the tagline of Infinity Wars, Death Wins. I think too many people are taking that tagline at face value, assuming that at least one of the members in these teasers is going to die somehow.
Yeah, I actually do not think that's going to be the case. I'm with you on that. I think there's a metaphor going on here.
Yeah. But the second teaser that was released with this tagline has had people even more confused, and for some reason they're convinced that an X-Man is going to die.
Gee, like we haven't had enough of that recently.
Yeah, but sometimes I think that's just fan vitriol talking, because the next teaser involves Star-Lord and Emma Frost.
I thought that was weird. I did think that was weird.
That's a highly unusual team-up. You know, Emma Frost is, even on her best days, more than a bit self-absorbed, and space just doesn't seem like the type of place she ever wants to be.
Yeah. I know that Emma Frost took a heel turn recently when Death of X happened, and it turned out that, Cyclops had been dead this whole time and just was a construct of hers as she slipped into madness.
Right. Well, she slipped into PTSD. I don't know about madness.
Well, yeah, okay. I'm using a blanket term for the yeah.
Okay.
But it seems like she's coming on the redemption path. Recently, she was in a story with Havoc, who is still inverted, much the way Sabretooth is. Havoc has been inverted to an evil side, and it seems like she's realizing he's definitely in the wrong because he's recruited people like Bastion and Miss Sinister, the female equivalent of Mr. Sinister from an alternate universe, to his little group.
She's not from an alternate universe.
She is not. Oh, Miss Sinister is not.
No,
I assume she was.
Okay, this will be a bit of a ride, Joanna. Strap in. This gets weird.
Wee.
Mr. Sinister's longevity doesn't come from necessarily his genetics. It comes from him downloading his memories to like his own kin in different bodies through the eras.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
He set up a failsafe not long before the Avengers versus X-Men event. But what happened was in that one of the failsafes was a woman. It would be one of the not the first time, but one of the latest times he'd taken a female host. Except she managed to reprogram that red diamond that carries all of his memories so that she was able to keep her personality and memories, but she was able to download all of Sinister's genetic manipulation, knowledge, and sciences.
That explains why her personality is different. And the fact that she first appeared to me, the first time I saw her, she was messing with the Ultimate X-Men characters that had come through.
Yeah, I can't remember where exactly I saw her first. I saw her origin story. I read that quite a while ago as it was unfolding in Marvel. But the other thing is, I'm guessing, Casey, you haven't read X-Men Blue 28 yet.
No, not yet.
Emma Frost was assisted by Polaris. They actually managed to take Polaris' memories of Havoc before his inversion and overlay those on top of his current personality. So, for lack of a better term, OG Havoc is back with his evil self. He can feel like under the surface of everything.
Well, I guess that makes more sense for the title. Was it called Cry Havoc? I figured that his redemption was in there somewhere, but the issues I'd read up to gave me no indication that was going to happen.
Oh, on top of which, Magneto called in a little bit of a favor from somebody they saved. He called in Elixir, who didn't necessarily heal Havoc's face, but fixed it well enough where the scars are like his evil self. They're hidden.
Oh. Well, I was actually kind of concerned about that, and I'll say this. I figured that if the effect that caused him to be evil wore off, then the effect that changed Sabretooth into a decent, writable character would also wear off. So I was really concerned, and that was one of the reasons why I was watching this particular series to see if that was the case. And to find out that they fixed him without having to do that, I'm actually thankful for.
And the other thing that stuck out about this teaser when I stared at it was that Emma Frost had an X on her belt buckle again. So I thought something. Yeah, if you take a good look, I sent you the link in the Skype chat. I don't know if you can see it, but she has an X in there, so I figured something was going to happen. But by the end of X-Men 28, Magneto had reappeared, like I said, with a little bit of help, and the people who were trying to make Mother Vine force mutations had been defeated for the most part. Havoc had been fixed, and Emma Frost had basically said, "Look, I could have helped kill you. I saved you. Therefore, we're wiping the slate clean, and I walk away." To which Magneto's response was more or less, "You tried to kill me, and we're not even till I try to kill you." So it seems like Magneto's going back to the ways of extremism. Meanwhile, Emma Frost is the one who's finding a more moderate approach to her end goal.
Well, I think Magneto has just been Magneto for several years now. Ever since he started doing that whole white suit, black suit kind of routine, I'd say about 5 or 6 years ago, he's had that kind of personality. And when he had his own X-Men team, with M and Sabretooth and a couple other people, he had that kind of mentality too. He's definitely an outsider, but he's still on the right side. He's just an extremist.
Actually, it's going worse than that because apparently, according to the teaser at the end of that issue, he's going back to form a new brotherhood.
Oh, well, I'll just take my shoe right out of my mouth.
Okay. I read the issue. What can I say?
God damn it. This is what happens when I miss one damn issue. One damn issue.
Well,
I am now the scrub.
Easy. Jeez, okay. Marguerite Stoll is it Marguerite Stoll? Margaret Stoll is writing the new Life of Captain Marvel series, one of Casey's favorite superheroes.
Absolutely.
And she sat down with CBR recently to lay out some of what she expects to do in this series, which is kind of difficult because she's expecting to be able to slip in new aspects to Carol Danvers' history, which is right now about 60 years old, which that's a difficult thing to do. At least not without breaking the character or having an infinite crisis of some sort, as we found out.
Or time traveling to rewrite their history.
Right. So, CBR asked if it would be fair to describe her version of the story as a mystery tale about how Carol became the person she is today. Her response was, quote, "Absolutely. All origin stories are mysteries. They're actually my favorite kind of mysteries, and that's absolutely the structure of this. It's been really fun to play with, but hard to get exactly right. So we've put a lot of work into this one in terms of the hours shifting through all the evidence and turning the reader's eye to the right moments in particular," unquote.
Well, I mean, as far as sorry, I'm a little sick, so my voice is still a little scratchy.
It's okay.
As far as origin stories go, Carol Danvers one has been very simple. I mean, if we're talking like real origin, like the very first moments, not so much the evolution of her character through Ms. Marvel, through Binary, through Captain Marvel, but I mean, she just happened to be in the right guy's hands when, and this is the most marvelous of Marvel machine names ever, the Psycho Magnetron exploded, putting Captain Marvel's rarefied Kree genes into her and giving her the abilities.
Right.
So,
but ever since when she was first introduced, though, she was kind of Captain Marvel's Gal Friday. She was,
and I'm glad that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, finish up.
No, I'm glad that they made efforts, a lot of efforts over the years, especially in the late 70s and early 80s, to try to distance herself from that. And of course, they made the perfect way of going about that is killing out Captain Marvel himself in 1980 and giving her a look that looked nothing like him or the original Miss Marvel costume at all in the 80s when she joined the Avengers, the Lightning Bolt costume.
But also, the most character development she had was as part of Rogue's site during the 1990s run of Uncanny X-Men, which is a little bit bizarre, considering she had no body at the time, realistically. But Stoll is taking on a rather unique challenge in trying to flesh out Carol Danvers' origin pre-Miss Marvel. According the interview with CBR continued, they asked her, whenever a story that re-examines a character's origin is announced, there's a worry that past continuity that some readers have gotten attached to will be retconned in favor of something new. Is this a story that does that, or is it more of a look at what happened sort of in between the raindrops of her established origin? Her response was, quote, "Yes, in between the raindrops, that's exactly it. Not every return to the past is a retcon. This is more of a contextual shift. Marvel actually has a really specific approach to looking at the past. It's that consistency that is sometimes more important than continuity. So the heart of your story and the emotional through line have to feel right, and this is a very meticulous attempt to keep Carol's origin intact with the goal of really letting her tell and own the story. It also allows her to figure out as a character what the source of her power really is. That's the sort of idea that's been radiating through this place. Carol Danvers is arguably the strongest hero in the Marvel Universe. The understanding of her as a hero is fundamentally tied to her strength, but being strong is not entirely the same as having Kree powers. So it's been a really interesting journey into looking at the nature of Carol's strength. What makes her strong as a person and as a hero? Where is this all coming from? Also, in every hero story, that's going to be inevitably tied to what makes you weak. So it's also been the most frail and kind of broken human story that I think we've ever had for Carol. It's been a remarkable character piece, which is what I've done forever and ever as a novelist. So this has been really an interesting sort of culmination of things I have in my wheelhouse about emotion, characters, and family. It's also really the result of sitting in the Marvel writer's room and seeing how these stories tie into and explore the fundamental nature of heroics. So, this is the hardest thing I've done, but it's the most fun I've ever had, unquote.
Well, won't be the first time that we've savaged poor Carol and her feels and her family. At least 2 separate times, of course, the first being when Rogue gave her the big zap in Avengers Annual 10. And more recently, about 4 years ago, Carol's had all of her feelings and connections to her her memory is completely removed. This includes her friends. This includes particularly her family. For several issues back in 2000, oh God, I want to say 2013, 2012, when this was removed, it was just the status quo for her. I mean, she was still a hero. She still wanted to be Captain Marvel, but her parents were just these people, people that she spoke to, but had zero emotional connection to them whatsoever.
Hey, that was sad, but it wasn't quite as weird as the time where she gave birth to and then fell in love with her own adult son. I mean,
oh God, we will not speak of Avengers 200 ever, ever. Oh my God, the darkest moment in Marvel's history.
Joanna,
actually, you know what? Now that I'm saying that, we're probably gonna have to dedicate an episode to Avengers 200 and just talk about why it's awful.
It sounds awful. I haven't read it.
Joanna, what's your take on this trying to flesh out of Carol's history?
I like it because a lot of people don't know much about her, and with a movie coming out, I mean, why not? It's a good time for it.
You know, it's probably about time, realistically, because there was an entire generation of readers who got to know her around the time of House of M, you know, the alternative world tale where mutants were the top race on Earth, and that's when Marvel really tried to flesh out her wanting to be known as the top hero in the Marvel universe, and not long after that is when she became the third Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think there's a whole group of people out there who didn't know her until she was already hyper-powered and just wanted to be something else.
The fifth Captain Marvel.
Oh, okay. I don't keep
I know.
Captain Marvel is not my favorite character in Marvel Comics.
Yeah, the title really got bounced around a couple of parts. I mean, obviously, the first being Marvel, and then to Monica Rambeau, but then it also went to two of Marvel's kids, Genus and Phyla. They traded it back and forth as Genus went into insanity, and Phyla found other identity as Martyr. And then after that whole thing was wrapped up, it was finally given over to Carol.
Okay. A little bit more information has been given on this Weapon X Force that we talked about last week that's supposed to debut in Weapon X 22 in August.
Oh, yeah?
And when I say a little bit more information, one of the 5 shadows on the cover has been revealed.
Really?
Yeah, it's one of the ones we could easily guess is Sabretooth, except he's getting a variant on one of his prior costumes. This one used to be brown with tan accents, except now it appears to be black or charcoal gray with tan accents.
Huh, so I was right.
Yeah.
I'm not patting myself on the back on that one, but just looking at the silhouette, it did look like his 90s outfit.
It wasn't a hard guess if you played enough video games, even.
Yeah. Let's take a look at this. Okay, yeah, you're right.
So,
a little bit different. You know what they did? It looks like they also inverted the colors that are in that area. The parts that he has orange used to be brown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely modernizing it, but that still leaves 4 other members that have yet to be revealed. I don't know if this will be a case where we get weekly teasers similar to what happened when they announced the latest volume of Astonishing X-Men. But I still think at least 2 of these characters are readily apparent. A third one, have a decent guess, but I'm still not absolutely sure. And the 5th one is still an absolute mystery to me.
You know what? The more and more I'm looking at the one in the center, on the bottom part, the more I'm thinking that could actually possibly be a male character that's turned into a profile. You know? Like his head is turned over and he's looking over his shoulder or something like that.
I don't know. I still think that's Lady Deathstrike looking ahead, but that's me. Because the profile in the shadow has changed. You notice that now there appears to be 2 set of very long blade-like fingers in those hands.
Yeah, and a skull cap doesn't look as defined as it used to be. It's almost like they modified that, too.
Well, I noticed that in this newer image, the shadows, or the profiles, are much better defined, whomever they are.
Yeah, and that's what's actually throwing me a little bit. And that makes me wonder if that is M in the top right.
I don't know. Whoever it is appears to be holding something, unless they're giving a thumbs up, and I don't know why they'd be doing that in this cover.
I think they're actually not doing a thumbs up. I think they're holding up their index finger.
I don't know. I still think they're holding a gun.
It could be pointing a gun, yeah.
So I'm thinking that Domino is actually the one with the big gun on the bottom.
Yeah, but she's not the only gunner in Marvel Comics.
No, that's true.
It's true.
XMen Red has added a new artist with July's upcoming issue number 6. Carmen Carnero is joining Tom Taylor, who is still writing the book of X-Men Red. Carnero previously worked on issues of Superior Foes of Spider-Man, the Cyclops series, and the Punisher. She's going to be the... I'm sorry?
I really, really love Superior Foes.
Yeah, she's the first woman to ever draw on the Punisher.
Oh, God, yeah, you're right. Huh. Cool.
So, I haven't seen too many examples of her artwork. I read some issues of Superior Foes of Spider-Man, but I couldn't say for sure if they were the ones she did.
She's got a clean style. It's a bit more simplistic than your typical thing, but that's understandable. You often see a simplistic style in Marvel's humor books.
Huh.
I do mean to go back on that at some point. We also found out the reason why Scott Lang as the Ant-Man is leaving the Guardians of the Galaxy. It was a birthday party.
I didn't know he was on the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, he's been a Guardian for a little while now, and he had to leave the group because of a birthday party.
A birthday party.
Yeah, apparently, while the Guardians were getting ready for another adventure, Scott Lang, while hanging out with the Nova Corps, realized that Cassie's birthday is coming up, his daughter's.
Okay.
So he needs a little help getting home, but there was only one person he could figure out how to contact, and I imagine the conversation's not going to go great. The one person...
Is it Jack of Hearts?
No, actually. It's Nadya Pym.
Oh, okay.
Hank Pym's unknown daughter. I still don't think he's ever met her.
I don't think he has either. Honestly, she's been kind of on my to-do list. I have the entire run of the new Wasp series, but I have never found the time to crack it open, nor anything has really inspired me to do that. But, I mean, geez, if I was talking about Scott Lang and anybody that could do interstellar travel that he would probably have a problem with, it would be Jack of Hearts.
Well, I'm looking forward to this because Nadya Pym and Scott Lang are going to meet in a 6-issue miniseries of Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's going to be written by Mark Waid, the art's by Javier Guerin. Obviously, this is to take advantage of the upcoming Ant-Man and the Wasp film. But it's kind of hilarious considering that the Wasp in this particular tale has nothing to do with those movies, really.
Yeah,
so why are they going that way?
It's an interesting question because, number one, in the comic books, Janet Van Dyne and Hank Pym never had a child. They just never really had the opportunity between superheroing and their often rocky relationship. And rocky is like the best term for it, realistically.
That's putting it nicely.
And having a kid, Marvel Comics can be a continuity nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Nadya Pym was one of those later creations, I think, made to take advantage of the popularity of the Wasp in the films without trying to confuse people about, potentially a 60-year-old woman in comic books being known as the Wasp. So instead of introducing the same character from the movies, they made up a brand new character that was heretofore unseen in Marvel Comics to fill that role. Plus, they also took the advantage of this new character of instead of introducing a new 20-something, they introduced a new, 15, 16-year-old character who could stand with their newer generation of heroes.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why they put her on the Champions team.
I think that's why she ended up there. I don't think that's what her design was initially for. She was an Avenger for a significant amount of time. But I think they're just trying to figure out where to place her now that the storyline in Marvel has shifted since her debut last year, really. She's an interesting... Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying that I think Champions has definitely been a net for any teenage character that they don't know really what to do with or that they're trying to cross-promotion with.
Yeah. I do like the build of her character, though, in that not only is she smart, but she tends to look at the super scientists in Marvel the same way that, American girls tend to look at the Kardashians. That's somebody she's got to meet, do stuff with and hang out with and just ask generally weird questions.
Almost sounds like Gwenpool.
Oh, when she met Doctor Doom, she went total fangirl. Last up in Marvel Comics, we finally know what mission Frank Castle is on. For reasons that I don't know, he's gotten his hands on the War Machine armor and modified it for his personal uses.
Yeah, he's had it for a few issues now.
Yeah, but it turns out they finally revealed... Yeah, they've revealed a target that he's going after with this armor.
Oh, I didn't know he had a mission. I thought he was just taking advantage of new hardware.
He's after the Inner Circle. And when I say the Inner Circle, the first one on that list was Baron Zemo.
Mm.
And
Whoops.
then after that, he wants Dr. Faustus, Armin Zola, and the Hydra Supreme version of Steve Rogers. He wants the entirety of the people responsible for the Secret Empire.
Oh yeah, and I completely understand why he wants them. He got completely suckered by Hydra Cap into being his lieutenant
A
and doing
number
a lot of things against his better nature.
a number of characters did. I mean, Deadpool just kind of reverted into mercenary work because he doesn't know what else to do now that he's ruined his rep. And Frank Castle's always believed in Steve Rogers, so when this hydrified version asked him for a favor, he really didn't question it. He just found the targets, took them out, and then he realized later, holy crap, I've been duped.
Hmm.
Yeah, it would have taken much. I mean, Frank completely idolizes Cap.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when Cap first died, and we had Bucky Cap for a while, which was a really good run.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
It was a short run, but it was a good run.
Yeah, it was short. It was far too short. I think that they really did a good job with what they had, though. But for a while, Punisher actually wore a Captain America Punisher style costume.
Yeah. Yeah, boy, it did, man. The vitriol online on that was dark, but, that's about all the vitriol that is online these days.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand if you don't really know the context of what you're looking at. You see this Captain America Punisher merged costume on Frank, you're going to think, okay, that's ridiculous. The writer should be fired. He would never do that. But honestly, that's exactly what Frank would have done.
Mm-hmm.
As much as he idolized Captain America, hell yeah, he's going to salute his downed hero by wearing his image. That's absolutely something that Frank would do.
I think there's certain things that casual readers don't understand about the Punisher, though, is that he often doesn't follow the flow of, standard air quotes superheroics in any sort of fashion. He's an anti-hero. He's a guy that runs to the beat of his own drum, and people's rights and jurisprudence and all that really don't matter to him. If he figures somebody's in the wrong, he just goes straight after him.
And very rarely do people ever see him actually reacting to somebody he respects. Because off the top of your head, can you really name somebody he respects at all? I mean, it sure as hell ain't Daredevil. It sure as hell ain't Spider-Man. Nah, it's Steve.
Yeah.
It's all about Steve.
And he's near Batman level of crazy when you start mentioning his family. Not quite Martha stupid,
yes.
but he goes crazy.
God, yes.
We ready to move into some DC comics?
I
Sure.
suppose we could.
All right, we have news about the other major company and their comics and their characters and intellectual properties headed to the page now and in the near future. The end of the No Justice event in DC wrapped up this past week, and it turns out they laid the foundation, for the first time I know of since the Infinite Crisis, for the Outsiders.
Oh, yeah.
That name has been
cool.
bandied about quite a bit, but it really hasn't been used since, 2002?
At least.
And it's because Batman has decided that he needs a squad of people who are willing to work outside the normal rules and laws to get the things they need done, especially now that they know Amanda Waller has access to the entirety of what was in Brainiac's mind before he died.
So, what about their lineup? Any classics?
The only lineup was who Batman asked to run this team, and that's Jefferson Pierce, Black Lightning.
Okay, yeah, that's legit. That's totally legit.
I'd like to say that's legit, except this is another case where the tail may wag the dog. I don't know if this was a case where DC said this is the perfect guy to lead it, or if DC said this is the guy that's the most recognizable since Black Lightning on the CW is arguably the most popular show there right now.
Is it? Well, that's good to hear.
It was
I
very
actually did
highly
not know
rated.
what the,
Yeah, it's extremely highly rated despite not being part of the Arrowverse proper.
Interesting. I noticed it popped up on Hulu while the other shows have not yet.
Yeah, and this is one of those cases where it goes back to the first story we were
Netflix.
talking about. I don't know if this is because this is one of those shows that has a black lead and people gravitated around it because it's something different, or if because people actually recognize the hero. I really can't say. But regardless, I can't argue that it isn't drawing strong ratings. I mean, the show was up for a second season before the first one was done.
That's encouraging. As a child, strangely enough, I was actually a big fan of Black Lightning. I'm not really sure what the draw was. I just knew that I picked up everything I saw him in, and that included the old Outsiders issues.
Yeah. Well, I don't have the rest of the lineup, but in the Justice League Metal event, there was an image of a lineup that was remarkably similar to the originals, minus a couple. And I'm talking
Well,
about Metamorpho,
well,
Black Lightning, Katana, Halo, and Geoforce.
that's all the classics right there. Boom.
When I first read them, I was in the period where Looker was part of the team as well.
Yeah, Looker got added. Oh God, like in the 20s or 30s, the Outsider. She's definitely not part of the classic lineup.
Yeah. She also had one of the more unfortunate stories throughout that run.
Yeah, she got turned into a vampire.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had a rough time. I never found out what happened to Halo after Outsiders, and God, I haven't even seen Halo since what, three up complete revamps ago. So who knows what's going on with her?
The Outsiders appeared as a squad very sporadically. But the last time I remember seeing Halo was in the Blackest Night event. Her powers could actually affect the Black Lanterns directly since she could emit pure light.
Oh, that's right. She was part of that storyline, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
A storyline that's still developing, though, is how exactly does Selina Kyle fit into Bruce Wayne's family now that they're getting married? And one of the bigger questions I kept asking my other comic book friends is how would Damian Wayne respond to his dad getting married to this woman that's not his mother?
Probably with the same ire and disdain that he gives Dick Grayson.
Yeah.
You would actually
Probably.
be surprised. They dealt with that a little bit recently in the Batman Prelude to the Wedding by Tim Seeley and Brad Walker. And Damian was being his usual aloof self as he's getting fitted for a tuxedo for the event. You know, he's not being subtle about the fact that he doesn't like this woman. Okay, she's not family. She's not him, or she's not directly related to his father. You know, she hasn't earned the title of family like Dick Grayson and Tim Drake have. So he just doesn't have any general respect for her. After facing off with Ra's al Ghul, Damian goes back home with a warning from Al Ghul that he'll always be alone because, you know, Damian was trained to be the Prince of Assassins and eventually run the League of Assassins. He's just used to doing things his own way, and therefore he'll never really learn how to deal with others.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the few people who was awake when he got home was Selina Kyle. And he told her what happened to him, and she had a very unusual response for this, I guess you could say, adolescent that's never really treated her correctly. She was sitting on the couch, and she just said, yep, but tell you what, we're living in a house full of goody-goodies. People like you and me, we have to stick together. You don't ever have to call me Mom, but if you have my back, I'll have yours. Deal?
That's legit. I could see where Damian would gravitate towards that.
Yeah, Seeley found a nice middle ground for the two to have respect without actually having to, I guess you could say, eschew their egos.
Now, you know, that kind of reminds me of a story I saw with, it was during the New 52 when the, Huntress, yes. When Huntress was for Earth 2 Huntress and is the daughter of Catwoman and Batman from Earth 2. And her whole story with Damon. And when they realized that genetically they were, you know, siblings. And it was really cool to kind of see that story and gel together when they went from complete strangers to family.
Well, another variant's been released for Batman number 50. I don't remember what date that comes out on. That is the actual wedding event. Oh, July 4th. So that's coming up in a month here. The book itself it has a bevy of variant artists, but this one is by fantasy artist Joe Jusko.
Oh, hey, cool.
Oh, you should. I'm going to share it with you right now. It is Selina in her wedding dress laying on the floor with a cat-headed shaped rug. She is surrounded by batarangs, black cats, some of the gear from her prior days as Catwoman, roses, Joker cards. It's a hell of an image.
Interesting.
Oh, I haven't seen stuff from Jusko in years. I used to do Masterpiece cards from Marvel and DC.
You know, I like this image, though. It shows a very strong character, but a very wily character, and all the weird things in her life that affect her.
Yeah, and it's definitely not a white dress. Definitely not a white dress.
No, she's being pretty honest about that.
Some. Enough.
I mean, black lace and white satin. It's kind of classy.
It is classy. It's a very nice dress. I agree. Yeah.
Has anyone seen the Batman Ninja anime? I am scared to look at that.
You know, I've seen a lot of people with that same attitude, and I've looked at the trailer more than a couple of times, trying to gauge my own interest. Um, as far as animation goes, they do seem to be doing some different things I've never seen. Um, I think it's safe to say that the animation on it is probably superior to most of the DC stuff out there.
Hmm. Well, I only asked because Batman Ninja, as it turns out, is being adapted into a manga by Area 51 artist Masato Hisa. This actually launched this past Friday in Japan's Monthly Hero magazine.
I would be very interested to see how that is received.
Well, I haven't seen any of it stateside yet, and I only imagine that's because it hasn't been localized and translated into English as of yet. This is a wholly Japanese production.
I would be interested in seeing how well it's received in Japan.
I don't have the early responses yet. I imagine those will start trickling in pretty soon.
Yeah.
Last up in DC news, I'm a little surprised to hear about this. According to series writer Tim Seeley, the Hellblazer series is coming to an end with issue 13.
Why?
Well, Seeley's tweet said, quote, "Yeah, I was hired to bring it to an end." He's taking over the book with issue number 13. Actually, the book ends with issue number 24 in June. So he was brought on to wrap up the story of Hellblazer.
I don't understand what... Okay. There's got to be more to this. Do you have more?
That's all he said in the tweet. Beyond that, in the Amazon solicitations that say that this August 24th will be the last one in the run for the trade paperbacks, there is no more beyond that.
So, are we talking about bad sales? Are we talking about twisting it into a different series? What?
No word.
God damn it. Come on, DC. Give us something to work with here.
Well, I suppose it's not exactly a coincidence that August is also the same month that Batwoman ends.
Yeah. God damn it.
I don't know. Something about August in DC, I guess, is just endings month.
Oh, August, the month of disappointments.
Yep.
Wow. I think that's going to be the title of my life story. And last up, we have general comic and convention news. This is where we talk about comic books that are not Marvel or DC related, as well as conventions happening all around the world. Because it was recently a holiday, there isn't a whole lot of news from San Diego Comic-Con. There was one bit of news from New York Comic-Con that is actually pissing people off.
Oh.
Yeah. Tell me.
The event goes on in October, and a lot of people have to put in for badges. It's like San Diego Comic-Con in that, wanting badges doesn't necessarily mean you'll be able to get your hands on one. The problem wasn't in regular attendee badges. It was in professionals badges. There was some kind of... Reed Pop, who runs New York Comic-Con, had some kind of computer error that resulted in numerous comics veterans being denied industry badges for New York Comic-Con.
Uh-oh.
Like actual quantifiable people who've worked in comics were not given badges. Mike Armstrong is the event director for Reed Pop, and he issued a statement via CBR.com saying, quote, "We are doing everything we can to figure out the glitch and rectify the error today. Our team will be in touch with those professionals who were rejected when they shouldn't be. The creator community is what makes New York Comic-Con so special, and we're bummed that a misplaced Excel column gave that community the impression that they weren't as valued as they are," unquote. He also tweeted earlier that morning, quote, "Many of you are getting rejections, but shouldn't be, clearly," unquote. The thing about industry and professional badges are they're not gifts. They aren't free. You have to pay for those. And they don't entitle the creators to table space, but they do permit creators to move around the convention more easily than your average attendee so that they can connect with other creators and businesses and just kind of forward the business of comics at the convention. And you wouldn't think that's terribly important, except like San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con has grown beyond its building at the Javits Center and is held at a number of locations in the area. So you really need to be able to get around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no kidding.
The mass rejections actually had a social media backlash because some people were afraid that comics creators were being eschewed in favor of people who just did marketing. I know that doesn't sound like a terribly big issue, but that can be pretty big when you consider that the fear that's going around is that people who draw, write, and edit comics were being kicked out in favor of people whose job it was just to kind of take a product and push it to other companies.
That could be a bad PR thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because that's putting forth the wrong agenda.
New York Comic Con is currently scheduled to be held October 4th through 7th in New York City. Viz made an announcement that kind of made my hair stand on end when it came out early last week. For San Diego Comic Con, Viz has announced that they're bringing the creator of My Hero Academia, Kohei Horikoshi, for his first ever North American appearance at San Diego Comic Con this year.
I would love to meet that person.
You know, it's one of those things that kind of freak me out, because in the same general area 2 weeks before, we have what's supposed to be the largest anime convention in North America, the Anime Expo, happening, which you would think would be the place they want to introduce this man. But no, they're bringing him to Comic-Con instead. And I get the parallel. The guy's a manga creator, which is basically Japanese comic books. I get that, except Comic-Con, while it's a bigger audience than Anime Expo, is not quite as focused on anime and manga as Anime Expo is. I thought they'd spend the time introducing him to his core audience instead of people who, you know, maybe tangentially interested in anime and manga in addition to comic books.
Well, I think I can understand why they're doing that. And this is actually something I've been thinking about. Once I discovered that My Hero Academia is my favorite all-time modern anime.
It's nice that you discovered that. It made it sound like you needed a documentary to figure that out.
Right. Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is, My Hero Academia is very Western in its depiction of heroes. I mean, you don't really see Western-style heroes really developed or focused on at all in either manga or anime in Japan. So to see it like this, I think that's one of the reasons why it's resonating so well here in the States, and probably one of the big reasons why I like it.
I don't know about that per se. I've watched a few episodes of the show, and it strikes me as overwhelmingly Japanese. But one thing I can say is that I've had conversations with a couple people that have worked at Anime Expo. I'm not going to name names, but these are conversations I've had. That anime and manga creators don't generally like going to Anime Expo right now because they find the fan base to be too boisterous, too rowdy. And I used to be a huge fan of anime and manga, and I went to a number of conventions. I've been to most Anime Expos between 1992 and 2017. I've missed 2. But I will say that the fan base is rather rowdy. You know, lots of screaming, rabid people. The crowding has been kind of intense and a little bit unsafe, in my opinion. But San Diego Comic-Con, the fans there tend to skew a bit older by approximately 5 to 10 years. And the atmosphere in Comic-Con is more business-like. So it may be more crowded, but people are more willing to just kind of shut up and wait for things, you know?
Like adults?
Yes.
Yeah, I've noticed that with anime conventions. I've worked a few booths at various ones in the area. I prefer the Comic-Cons just because there's not a bunch of, middle school and high school kids running around shrieking their lungs out when they see somebody dressed in their favorite cosplay. Yeah. For the sake of the fandoms, I wouldn't watch a lot of the shows just because of how the fans act. So I get that.
It's a personal guess. I can't say for absolute certainty. I still think something is weird when San Diego Comic-Con gets the creator of My Hero Academia, Anime Expo doesn't. San Diego Comic-Con's getting the Dragon Ball Tour event, Comic-Con isn't. And now I've read this week that the latest tour by the Vocaloid virtual creation, Hatsune Miku, is coming to Los Angeles for a concert on June 29th, but won't wait the week to perform at Anime Expo.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. The Comic-Cons have bigger audiences, and if the Comic-Cons are asking, you say yes.
Right. It could be to expand the fan base too. If it's close enough to a Western hero story, they could then see the crossover easily into the comic book fans' world. That's legitimate.
Interesting that you bring up comic book crossover. There's a writer named Ken Plume who was tweeting this past week. And as it turns out, he's worked on the comic book adaptation of something that's going to debut, or not debut, but he's going to talk more about it at San Diego Comic-Con. He has been working on the Dark Horse adaptation of The Venture Brothers.
Huh.
If there was ever an animated show that's made for comic books, that's one of them. I mean, for those that haven't seen it, it's occasionally replayed on Adult Swim. You can find most of their episodes on the website, if not on Hulu. If I had to describe it in short terms, it's Johnny Quest on really vile acid.
Yeah, it's all about failure.
Yeah. I find it to be a great show, but man, you got to know going in that it's basically a parody of old-fashioned adventure books. And
I
sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say that. Yeah. I forgot my. I forgot what I was gonna say.
Look, a lot of modern adult animation fans, they tell you they want to be Rick Sanchez desperately. I still want to be Brock Sampson, but that's personal.
Oh God! You know that one season where Brock was not their bodyguard, I was heartbroken about that because damn if that isn't what almost all of the comedy is from him reacting to the boys.
I don't know. Sergeant Hatred became a pretty good substitute there.
Oh God!
But also announced is going to San Diego Comic-Con this year via his own website. One of the co-creators of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Kevin Eastman, will show up.
Oh wow! Cool.
He hasn't said for what exactly, but he has confirmed on his website that he'll be there all 4 days, July 19th through 22nd. Do you read any comic books via Comixology?
Some.
Joanna, you?
Once or twice.
Okay.
I have the app,
Mhm.
and I have a few comics on there, but I don't use it all the time.
Okay.
I use it when I miss issues.
Comixology, for those that don't know, is a comic digital reading app. It doesn't have access to the entirety of DC or Marvel libraries, but stuff that they do occasionally license stuff from both of the big companies and a lot more independent books in between. Comixology, although it looks like is taking a bigger step into the world because they've announced that they're going to create exclusive original digital creations for their app. They're going to produce brand new comic books that are going to be released via their app.
Neat.
This will include a lineup of creator material like Savage Game by Ryan Khalil, written by Sean Kittleson and art by Chris Murray, Super Freaks by Elsa Chartier and Perret Colinet, illustrated by Margot Sattel, that's all French, Elephant Men 2261, The Death of Shorty from the Richard Starkings franchise. The art's going to be by Alex Medellin and Boo Cook. And Ask for Mercy from also from Richard Starkings and by artist Abigail Jill Harding. You know, I found that to be interesting. I just thought it was the natural evolution of storytelling. I saw one guy from Fantagraphics Comics who went on a long Twitter rant about how this is the death of comics, really.
So it'd be all digital, nothing in print available of these comics?
There would also be a print option. It is a ready-to-order type thing. Basically, via the app, you can order print versions of these books in a couple different ways, but I don't think you can get anything in the form of hardcovers or extremely expensive paper. It's just kind of a, I don't want to say discount, just an affordable print option.
So video killed the radio star.
Pretty much. That's what the
Well,
Fantagraphics guy was screaming in a different format, really.
Right.
You know, I don't quite know about that. I just kind of thought this is the evolution of people's entertainment. Comics have been slowly working their way digital for quite a while.
I don't know. I still prefer real books over digital. I mean, I never got into the Kindle or the, digital books. I'm just not a fan of reading comics digitally. I would prefer to have the actual novels themselves.
I'm like you, but I always figure that's because I'm 40 and old. You know, I just kind of prefer sitting down with paper. There's also the idea that, one, I don't get distracted with my hyperactive mind going, you know what you forgot to look up? So I suddenly, click off the reader and start flipping through the internet like I do. And in addition, the physical comic books I buy, the battery never runs out. Whenever I feel like reading it, I just read it.
Exactly. You don't need a battery. You don't need to, oh yeah, did I charge this? It's there. It's a book.
Yeah, my comic books don't get charged in my data plan.
Right. Oh, wait, did I download it? Do I have enough space? What do I have to delete? It's there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll die completely.
I doubt it will. I mean, the only way to collect comics really is physically. Yeah, you can buy the license to read it online, but you don't actually own the book.
Yeah, but if your device, is not working or not connecting to the internet or doesn't have internet or battery, then you can't read it. It's not the same.
Yeah, God forbid your hard drive fails or you suddenly lose your entire system to malware.
Oh,
right.
God, don't tell me that stuff.
Okay, now that he's peeing himself. Lionforge Comics, another independent company, has announced that they're going to put out a new imprint called Caracal Comics. These are going to be comics aimed for people from ages 8 to 12. they're basically coming out with a new set of comic books that are aimed for those young people who are developing their wants to read, and these are stories tailored for them. They're calling it the market for middle grade comics. I can't say that's a bad idea. I mean, I'm not going to say they're any easier or harder to read than Marvel and DC comics, but comics like this, especially fresh out, don't have 60 years of continuity for you to pluck through and try to make sense out of.
That's true. Yeah, because they have the junior versions of some of, was it DC Kids or DC Girls? They have
DC
a
Girls,
series, right? I've read a few issues. I've sent a few to one of my friend's daughters to kind of get her into it at an early age. I guess it'd be good, have a younger set, but it's not classic characters. I have mixed feelings about that.
Yeah.
I have the exact same mixed feelings, I think. I do completely advocate for the early introduction of comics to children because that's how I got into it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, my introduction was to comics as they were. I had to catch up to it. I had to figure out what words meant or what situations
Right.
meant. And as an adult, I would go back and go, oh, that's what they were talking about. I think that you kind of miss the mark ever so slightly by giving them stuff like DC Girls or DC Kids.
Well, speaking of missing the mark, Stan Lee is getting into more weird personal hijinks. Police were recently called out to his Hollywood home with the result of gunmen being seen near the property.
What?
Yeah.
How much reality of that was there?
Actually, surprisingly, there was quite a bit. Police did actually arrest 2 armed men outside his house.
Oh, God, we're
Wow.
going to rob him or something?
Well, according to the Daily Mail, they reported that multiple police units and a helicopter all went to Lee's home in the Hollywood Hills, and they ended up detaining 2 suspected gunmen outside his house around 7:30 p.m. this past Thursday night. Stan was reportedly home at the time, and it's also being reported that the gunmen were after money they claimed Lee owed them.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
wow. It's an O.J. Simpson situation.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
police also found out that the gunman visited the property on Wednesday as well, apparently also demanding money that was apparently owed. I mean, I would almost laugh this off as some kind of weird swatting or fake story, except we already know that Lee's in pretty bad financial trouble right now. So, sadly enough, owing money to shady individuals is not outside the realm of possibility at this point.
Yeah, I think that those are sharks.
I don't know about sharks. They may have been someone's enforcers to collect money for a shark.
Wow, that
Wow.
is definitely gristle for the mill of proper screenwriting.
It's also very important to make sure your money is well managed.
Yeah.
Oh God, and it was so much easier when Lee's wife was alive because she took care of all that stuff. But now that it's in the hands of their personal assistant, a lot of scrutiny has been thrown that way.
Yeah,
As to whether that assistant has the best interests of Lee in mind.
well, between the weird financial decisions that have been made by Lee's daughter since Stan Lee's wife passed away, as well as, the business people she's brought in to help run things, and combine that with Stan Lee's age at 95 and his advanced medical issues, there's word that some people expect him to be bankrupt in a matter of months at this point.
That is
Man.
sad, unfortunate.
Yeah, and this is a man that's created multi-million-dollar franchises and still gets royalties from the different movies and TV series made on the properties that he helped develop back in the 60s.
And he's still got an agreement with Marvel for $1 million stipend each year.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of scary
Wow.
that someone's burning through his reserves. The Library of Congress has to be happy, though. They've just acquired the largest comic book donation to date with more than 3,000 items from the personal collection of Stephen A. Geppy. He's the owner and CEO of Diamond Comic Distributors.
Yeah, I heard he was getting rid of. He was closing down the museum that he had collected them all into.
He
and
did.
was donating that.
He did. He donated a serious amount of them, including 6 rare storyboards from 1928's Plain Crazy, the first Mickey Mouse animated short ever produced, as well as comic books, original art, photos, posters, newspapers, buttons, pins, and badges. The whole thing
That's a serious collection.
The whole thing is going to go on display, or the whole donation will go on display, I should say, this summer at the Library of Congress in Baltimore, Maryland.
That is actually really cool of him to do that. I mean, he could totally have banked on that stuff.
Yeah, they won't say exactly how much the worth is of what he's donated, but the donation is valued in the millions by the Library of Congress itself.
Oh, easily. I mean, with those storyboards alone.
Would you like to hear some of the stuff that's in the Library of Congress already?
Sure.
Sure.
Over 140,000 issues of 13,000 comic book titles dating back to the 1930s, including copies of All-Star Comics number 8, the first appearance of Wonder Woman, and Amazing Fantasy 15, which marked the first appearance of Spider-Man.
Well, I know where I'm going when I visit DC.
I don't think I can go there because I'll be the person that somebody has to follow around and clean up all the glass cases after.
Easily.
Yeah.
I can really appreciate that Rob Liefeld, somewhere in the past year, has developed a sense of humor about himself.
He's got to, because he's a clown.
Well, I mean, he realized when he relaunched Youngblood that he was the wrong writer, and he said so in his own tweets when he hired the current people that are working on it now. He's finally realized that he can create things, but he may not be the best person to craft stories. And somewhere in the middle of all this, he released a joke about himself. He said he created the most Liefeld character ever, and tweeted that he created something called The Pouch.
I saw this ridiculous picture.
Yeah, it was a comic book character made up of nothing but pouches. His head was a pouch. His shoulder pads were all pouches. His fingers were pouches. Even his rifle was made out of pouches. And it
What?
and it fired pouches. But
No.
oh yeah. But unfortunately, the joke seems to have taken on a life of its own because people found it so funny. Liefeld has now introduced it with the book he's writing with Michael Fife in his own Extreme Universe, Bloodstrike number 23. The pouch is going to be in it.
Yeah, I saw that cover.
Boy.
I thought maybe it was a joke.
You know what? When he introduced the pouch in that tweet, I thought, okay, finally he's self-effacing. He understands how weird some of the stuff he does is. Now that he's adding this character into the stories, all of a sudden I'm thinking, I think he's taking this too far.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I sent you guys an image of the cover from Bloodstrike Brutalist number 23 with the pouch on the cover.
Oh my gosh. That's horrible.
It was.
Oh my god. I like his pouch head.
I just seriously hope this is some kind of backup, or if this is a character that's going to be introduced and quickly killed. If he starts building a story around this, I will be so disappointed.
Oh god, what a tragedy.
Patron saint of Baywalkers?
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, now we have to explain that reference.
Well,
Okay.
pouches, pockets.
Yes, pouches, pockets, but I'm pretty sure most people have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
I'm drawing a bit of a blank
Funny
here
for a
myself.
TV.
I thought we were talking about the latest Michael Bay incarnation of things.
No.
Joanna and I both participate in a live-action role-playing game called Dystopia Rising, and it's basically set in the
Nerds!
future. Yes,
Yep.
we are. So it's set into the future, and it's a zombie survival game. And instead of human
Post-apocalyptic.
yeah, very possible. I'm trying to encapsulate this in as small a soundbite as I possibly can, but it's a post-apocalyptic, hundreds and hundreds of years after humanity has basically nuked itself, and the zombies, or what we call Zed, have appeared, and humanity as itself has broken up into different strains of humanity.
Yeah,
And
like
one of
different
those-
mutations, basically.
Yeah, so they all have different like physical traits, mental processes, and stuff like that. And one of those is the residents of Boston, or as it's now called, is it Baytown? Because it's just water.
Mm.
And these are called Baywalkers, and they're known culturally for having a lot of pockets.
Everywhere.
Yes, the more pockets you've got, the better a Baywalker you clearly are. It's all about
Pockets have pockets.
Pockets
Okay.
have pockets.
So when I saw this image, I'm thinking, wow, this would be like the Baywalker patron saint or something.
Oh, and I'm memeing it that way as we speak.
Do it, but give me credit.
I don't know. I'm staring at this,
totally
and all I
am.
can think is this is a living embodiment of a D&D bag of holding, but that's just me.
Oh my god. Yes,
Uh,
while we're recording, I'm memeing.
I only have one more story in general comic news, and it's almost as odd as the pouch. There is an election upcoming in Canada in June 7th. Voters of the nation's largest region are faced with a decision where they have to figure out which candidate to elect, and I don't know for what position necessarily. Oh, for Premier of Ontario. Somebody apparently got into a drunken dare and decided to make up signs for another candidate, and that candidate is Zod.
Oh no.
Kneel before Zod.
I am not
Really?
kidding. I am not kidding. There's an image of some of the lawn signs that have Terrence Stamp from Superman 2, and the exact words on this sign are "Kneel before General Zod for Ontario Premier. Less evil than the other guy."
That is fucking brilliant.
I want to know how many people actually vote for Zod, though. I want to see those results.
I would vote for Zod.
Do they have write-ins in Canada?
I don't know. I'd be curious to see the photos of people like at the voting booth on their knees trying to poke Zod. I mean, jeez.
Or, holding the signs, having little buttons and stickers passed out. That'd be great. I would troll them so bad.
A few years ago, I would just call this a bad joke, but considering what we elected into the White House here in America, this is entirely plausible, unfortunately.
It is. It's also entirely plausible, like, in England.
Look, you can make fun of Lord Buckethead all you want. I voted for that man.
Lord Buckethead. So glamorous. I can't get enough of Lord Buckethead.
Yeah, if you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. That happened. The subject of this week is DC Comics' Power Trip, the Power Girl-centric graphic novel. It was done by a husband and wife team, and it collects a number of issues focusing on Power Girl and the Justice Society of America. I believe it was called JSA Unclassified. It was written... I should say JSA Unclassified was written by Jeff Johns, and Amanda Connor was the writer of Power Girl. All the art is by Jimmy Palmiotti. And this is, I guess it's kind of hard to put into words, because the beginning of it is the refocusing of Power Girl's origins after a number of crises, rewrites, and retcons that have happened in DC Comics.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was supposed to be her ongoing adventures afterwards. I mean, Casey, maybe you can summarize this better than I can.
You're talking about her... Well, okay, the issue itself really kind of starts off with her trying to figure out where she's from. Now, as far as where she's originally comes from, Power Girl is Earth 2's Supergirl, except she's probably about 10 years older. So she's obviously a fully fledged adult, late 20s, early 30s, by whatever comic you're reading. However, back in 1985... we had the Crisis of Infinite Earths. In that, all the different Earths were all collapsed. All you had was now just one Earth. So all the characters that DC wanted to use or could use were all going to have to come from this Earth. And that kind of screws over Power Girl. However, the powers that be kept her around. But as the years progressed, they would
wait, hang on. When you say powers that be, do you mean DC editorial or the Anti-Monitor?
At this point, yeah. It would have to be,
Are they not the same thing?
At this point.
I have a feeling at least one of them kneeled before Zod, but I'm not sure which one. Please continue.
Anyway, people like Power Girl. I love Power Girl, so, why not keep her around? But at the same time, you've got to iron out what her origin is really going to be. So, at one time, she was the displaced daughter of an Atlantean sorcerer. Mm-hmm. Or she was the displaced member of the Legion of Superheroes, Andromeda. Or she was from Earth 3 as the daughter of Ultraman and another, like,
Superwoman.
Or something like that. Just anything that they could possibly use to validate a blonde, Kryptonian-style hero still being in the DCU and keep Supergirl, which even though Supergirl had died, you still got to keep that weird continuity. And the neat thing about that is that all that shit happened, and it's stuck with Power Girl for decades. And as we get into this review of Power Trip, every single one of those fake origins that they assigned to her is addressed. As a matter of fact, in the very first issue, we are given the proper official origin for Power Girl. And without going into spoilers too much, it's the one that is stuck with her up until...
It's a 14-year-old book. Just talk about it.
I think it's safe to at this point.
Yes. When it really comes down to it, it's the basic, the Occam's razor, the simplistic is usually the answer, and that's the case here. Even though there is only one Earth, when it really comes down to it, Power Girl is from Earth 2. She just managed to survive the crisis, the same way this other villain called the Psycho Pirate managed to survive the crisis. That's really the end of it. The most simplistic answer you could possibly give for this is to give her old origin, and that's what stuck.
You know, I liked the art style mostly in this. There's a couple times where Jimmy Palmiotti's art just kind of takes this weird shift into the surreal.
Are you talking about the power trip issues? Because those are drawn by Amanda Connor.
I'm talking about in general.
I've only ever really seen Palmiotti's stuff when he's inking. Oh God, the old.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
EIC
Amanda
for
Connor is
Marvel.
the artist throughout this. You're right. I just
Yeah.
I don't know. It seemed like it was mostly consistent, but there was the occasional time where it felt like something slipped rather far.
Well, I did see that there was a small art shift right around the second or third issue. I mean, it's still hers, but I think that maybe she took in a different inker or something. But I see that subtle shift. But I'm a huge fan of Amanda Connor's art. I think that putting her as a writer on the most recent Power Girl book was a big mistake. She should definitely be behind an artist's brush and not a writer's keyboard.
No, I spent a well. First of all, I guess I should ask. I should add one caveat. I tried to keep this to the first 7 parts or 160 issues or pages of this book, simply because this is a huge graphic novel. It's like double sized.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's a serious book.
It's
serious
quite a
book.
bit to chew through. I mean, Joanna, what did you think of this book initially?
Well, on the artwork side, I liked it. It was kind of trippy, but I do like how they did address every single one of her fractured origins. I don't even know what to call it. Where they had. I mean, do you want me to talk about?
No,
what
go
she
ahead.
sees?
Go ahead. It's
Okay.
all in there.
I didn't know
shoot.
if we were getting that far into it.
Again, it's a
So-
14-year-old story.
Right.
Yeah.
So these hallucinations, or whichever they are, from Psycho Pirate, they address every single one of the. I don't know. Was it possible background story? Because I'd never heard of like half of these.
These are actual
Well, some of
backgrounds
them-
that they've used for Power Girl over the course of her history. Not all of them have been fully realized because sometimes editorial gets into a character they really enjoy, but readers don't latch on, so they just have to stop a
Right.
story early.
Yeah,
Okay.
of all of the ones that they've ever thrown at her are addressed. They also threw at her some origins that the writers talked about but never did.
Right.
And
okay.
they also threw in a lot of origins that fans had made up.
Yeah. See,
Okay.
this kind of highlights one of the biggest pet peeves I have with DC Comics, is that whenever they kind of work themselves into a corner as far as what to do with their overall library of heroes and stories, what they tend to do is just kind of etch-a-sketch the whole thing. They just shake it all up, start all over, and they tend to pick and choose whatever aspects of certain characters they like the most. And that's where characters like Superman, Batman, and Power Girl especially can suffer, because when people get to pick and choose which parts of the history they keep, it turns into this very confused jumble, and DC's done it 3 times now, as far as I know.
Yeah, that drives me nuts about DC too. I think that's one of the biggest pet peeves I have with DC as a whole.
Mhm.
They also, use their plot points to do it too, like Flashpoint.
Mhm.
Let's go change everything. Thank you, Barry Allen. Like,
I still maintain
I
that Barry
hated
Allen is
it.
the biggest villain in
Oh.
the Arrowverse, but that's my problem.
yes, and I still say, damn it, Barry Allen, timelines don't add up. It's all his fault. Anyway, no, so while DC frustrates me, this storyline was interesting because they do introduce all of these. And like I said, I'd only heard about half of them.
Mhm.
So having all of these, who am I, where am I from, this kind of crisis of self was interesting because Power Girl's always been physically and kind of emotionally strong. So her real enemy here is doubt, which is kind of a new thing for her because she's usually faced against these powerful, strong enemies that she has to, punch. But it's harder to fight the things that are in your head. So I thought that was an interesting and even maybe more fitting villain for her.
Excuse me.
I can
absolutely
appreciate
agree.
I can appreciate that. I found this version of Power Girl to be too self-effacing, though. I mean, doubt was one thing, but she spent significant amounts of time in this book, even without the Psycho Pirate's influence, just basically being down and doubting herself, even though this is a woman that has the capability to move mountains, as well as is a CEO of a leading biological research firm, which just amazes me. By the end of the book, I almost felt, or by the end of the section I read anyway, I almost felt like this was a missed opportunity, because you've got a character here that is kind of everything that I think DC has been searching for but never quite really latched onto. She's statuesque, hyper powerful, and a business leader. She's like what would happen if Superman and Lex Luthor were merged into one character.
Right. But she does mope, and I think that bothered me. And not even just as a woman, but okay, yes, everyone has doubts. It's human, but Superman never did. I mean, Superman's this perfect plot device that doesn't have, I think, real problems. So they're giving her real problems, but I think that they kind of made her overreact.
I think they made her overreact to one particular section that unfortunately set the tone for most of her story, and at least the first 4 sections here, in that she wasn't upset necessarily because she didn't quite understand her origin. What seemed to upset her the most was the potential realization that she's not related to Superman in some way, and that seemed to hurt her more than anything else. Even though
or the fact that, because of that, she's not accepted by the others.
Right, and that just seemed amazing to me for this character that is so powerful and generally respected by your peers, but this seeming loss of a connection to Big Blue was what really bothered her somehow.
And that bothers me, because a woman doesn't need a man to define her. Just saying, right, ladies? I'm just saying.
I think
I think that's the thing.
I think that's what I couldn't articulate when I was reading this, was that this is a very naturally gifted and strong woman in so many respects, yet just because she's not related to Superman, all of a sudden everything's awful.
Yeah, I call BS on that plot writing. Just, it bothers me kind of on a deep level.
And I'm sorry, it seems like I'm trying to interrupt you guys, and it's because I just keep agreeing. As much as I absolutely love this book, and I really do absolutely love this book, that has always been the one thing that's bugged me, is how much weight she puts on her connection to Supes.
Yeah, I can see.
And
finish your thought. I've yacked enough. Go ahead.
I mean, later on in the book, when she's talking to Huntress, and she basically just flat out tells her, I don't even bother looking into my past because I'm just not interested anymore. I was like, well, okay, now that's Power Girl that I remember.
Yeah, when she's engaging with supervillains, she seems generally more assured of herself, and I feel better about the character because this is her doing what she's very able to do. But
right, because it's black and white.
Yeah.
You're doing something bad, I'm a hero, I'm going to stop you. But then she struggles with her inner demons. And again, she shouldn't be defined by Superman. He's just a walking, talking plot device.
Yeah. As soon as she stopped punching things in JSA Unclassified was when she started to think about her relation or lack of to Superman again. And it just... I felt bad for the character without actually engaging with the character. It was very frustrating.
Yeah, that's not the Power Girl that I know.
It wasn't quite as frustrating as the more amorphic version of Psycho Pirate's abilities. I still had trouble trying to figure out when and if he was actually using his powers to affect the physical world, or if this was all just in her mind. It seemed to vary.
Yeah.
There are certain times people could see his illusions. There are certain times that they couldn't. And for some guy whose ability is supposed to be given to him by a mask that allows him to control and manipulate emotions, all of a sudden he has these weird psychokinetic constructs that apparently work somehow. I didn't understand.
Yeah, it was a little trippy.
A little bit. Excuse me.
I'm not sitting here trying to actively bash it. These are all things that I had issues with while trying to read through the book. And I'm a little bit disappointed in that, only because I have a high opinion of Power Girl in general, and I've always felt she was extremely underutilized by DC in general. And I didn't feel like that trend had really changed by the time I'd finished reading 7 sections of Power Trip.
Well, I mean, at the time this was happening, she was still very underutilized. When they were soliciting this book, the first issue is actually Infinity Crisis number 2, I think. And when they solicited the book, her form was blotted out. But they were basically saying, a classic hero gets their classic origin back. Or like this hero is super important, and then boom, it's Power Girl, front row, center, front stage, boom, here she is. So, I mean, this was really her reintroduction into Disney mainstream. Or not Disney, but DC mainstream. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm just suddenly imagining
They don't
Power
own it
Girl.
yet.
Yeah, Power Girl standing next to Merida and Elsa. Boy, somebody's different in this crew. Can I ask a question, though?
Sure.
After the first 4 sections, when they semi-resolved her history, why did this suddenly skip to her origin is still a bit of a question and she's about to encounter Clayface to, okay, the origin is established and the whole Clayface thing is just kind of in the rearview mirror? Why did this book just leap like that?
Yeah, there was a shift. I don't.
Yeah, there was a bit of a shift, and that's because the book is not exactly linear.
I get that. It's just it felt like we were leading into something. We were about to finally have a definitive origin, and then all of a sudden we have a blank spot, and origin's been told. Okay.
That has a lot to do with the fact that a lot of her origin was ironed out properly in Infinity Crisis, and it wasn't printed in these books. If you look at the book, the picture where she's standing on a star and all the stars are shooting past her, that's actually the cover of Power Girl #1.
Okay.
That's why.
Yeah, I understood that this was a collection of issues. I was just trying to understand why it felt like they left out the resolution of the first part of the book.
Yeah, because there's a bunch of issues of Infinite Crisis that talked about this and it completely resolved it, but she wasn't the star of that book. But Infinity Crisis #2 was all about her, and that's the reason why it's in this book.
Okay, that makes more sense.
All right. Well, the next 3 parts with her versus the Ultra Humanite, that felt more like the kind of character I was expecting when I first opened up this book. She was, I don't know, she wasn't the most confident person I'd ever seen, but she was still more self-assured. She was finding her footing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still
because she was finally in her own solo book, and it's all about the Power Girl that most fans come to have already known about.
Yeah, it just didn't quite feel like she had ever really found her stride, at least in the first 3 issues. I mean, the Ultra Humanite as an enemy has never been one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
No, but it's definitely a character that PG has faced off with before, so I guess put it in her villains gallery.
There are so many things I don't like about calling this character PG.
Because she's referred to, like, in character in the book as PG.
I understand that, except, when I stare at her, it's like PG sounds like a grade school version of Power Girl. PG sounds like what you might call her costume under a general day. PG also sounds like the type of thing you would say right after you were kicked directly in the genitals. So there's just, I don't know, every time someone refers to her as PG, I have all these flashes of other things other than the character. It's a personal thing.
No, I get that, and it's actually something I don't reference a lot. Just, I've learned as a writer, so pretentious when I say that, that when you're referring to a character over and over, it's a good idea to change up the description of that character. So it really helps when you're writing about a character and you know all their nicknames and you could use them.
It'd be great if she was called Power Woman or something, because the fact that they've always called her Power Girl, again, has bothered me since I was little. She's not a girl. This is a woman. Why are we doing this? Is it to downplay her importance or her abilities or her strength? It's all about the wording.
And I know it is. I have a really close friend of mine who has the same problem with that particular word. And I think it has a lot to do with perceptions in language and how the word is used. Because while, yes, boy definitely means young man. Man means man. But culturally speaking, girl has been a universal tag used for both girls and women. And
okay, but there's a Batgirl and there's a Batwoman. You can see the difference in their costumes and their bodies. I'm just saying.
To be honest, though, there wasn't both at the same time until, like, the latest version of comics.
Right. So
Batwoman,
it's more contemporary. But
Batwoman
comics have always been like a boys' club, to be fair.
And I'll agree with that. But to address your wording, Batwoman is a product of modern comics, and that's the reason why that trend
it's about time.
The trend is definitely there. The shift is definitely there. Not enough for us to just run wild renaming every character from girl to woman, especially since Power Girl actually sounds a lot simple and nicer than Power Woman. Not to
Right.
say, but you're completely valid in what you're saying, and I
But
support it.
girl, you expect her to be skipping rope and having a lollipop, not, punching you in the face. And woman, you're like, okay, this is a person with more authority. Just there's something about classic, like old school comics that even as a kid growing up, I'm like, well, why is it girl? She's more powerful than them. I mean, Power Girl, she's a powerhouse, right? But she's still a girl in title.
I
I
don't
mean,
know. I guess I think some of it's a perception issue. I've never found girl to be an effacing or downward type of title because I don't know. I guess I've just always grown up with the idea that women are the same as men generally. But
right. Well,
the other thing I was going to bring up
boys
though.
club, Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Well, the other thing I was going to bring up was that Marvel also kind of blocked them from the idea of using Power Woman when they gave Jessica Jones that title as as an AKA
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
around 8 years
Yeah,
ago, I
yeah.
think. After she got married to Cage, that's one of her call signs, even though she rarely uses them now.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's fair. I mean, besides the copywriting of it, I'm just talking about like the psychology of language, and that kind of thing's always interested me.
It's a,
But I mean, you've never been told, "Oh, you hit like a girl." That's an insult, unless you tell me because I've got a right hook. You know what I mean?
well, obviously those people have never been hit by Ronda Rousey. She hits like a girl, and that's goddamn hard.
Right. Yeah.
Um, it's. I think it's a combination of the former, extreme patriarchy we had when characters like this were established, and
Yeah.
then it just kind of carried through, not necessarily because of an effacing terminology, but just kind of tradition, for lack of a
Right.
better term, or at least a casual kind of acceptance and assimilation of it.
Tradition.
You know, I don't.
But tradition for the sake of tradition to me is just redundant and dumb.
It's amazing how we came here to review comic books and somehow got into a complicated philosophy of the male psyche.
Look,
Well, that
I
was going
think
to happen.
about
no
that
matter
when I read comics.
Well, Power Girl really is all about that. There's definitely discussions to be had when you're talking about Power Girl, whether you're talking about her name, whether you're talking about her costume, or her
Yeah.
personality, how she's perceived. There are a lot of hot button issues that all center around this, and I personally have to answer for a lot of these because I tend to be an apologist for characters that I really love, and I really love Power Girl. So
I mean, I'm not attacking her. I'm attacking the patriarchy behind the comics.
No, and I wasn't defending her to you. I was saying that this is a topic I have to address often.
Yeah, and
Right.
I was only getting involved because this whole thing sounds like a lecture in a 1990s community college. It's been interesting.
Well, I mean, while we're talking about hot button issues with Power Girl, we could also all talk about her costume and it's so scandalous. She has this hole in her outfit, and it's you know what? I've seen plenty of dresses that have that same stupid hole, whether it's bigger or smaller. It's there. It's a stylistic choice.
Right.
Hey, look, Power
And
Boy
just
had it
because
too.
you see, yeah, just because you see a woman's cleavage doesn't make her any less of an intelligent woman. So I don't really understand
Right.
why this is such a fucking hot button issue. And there's my second F-bomb of the game.
Well, I like that they actually address. It's called. Everyone always refers to it as the boob window.
Yeah.
They actually address it, and I think in a kind of amusing way in the book. The issues that we read, she said that she was designing a costume and she wanted to come up with a logo to put there like Superman's, but she never came up with one, so it was just left with a big hole. And I
Yeah.
think that was speaking volumes, that the hole is really actually in her heart, not in her costume. It's just reflective of that I don't belong. I don't have a logo. I'm not part of the Bat family. I'm not part of the Super family. Where am I? And I mean, they actually wove that into her main conflict pretty well, which I had to kind of tip my hat to.
Yeah, the organic reason for that hole was really just an evolution of her costume. When Power Girl first came out, she basically had a very low-cut outfit. It was straps went over her shoulder. She didn't have any sleeves. She was bare-sleeved.
Right.
Well, no, she wasn't bare-sleeved, but she was bare-necked. You know, it was basically neck to cleavage was an open, low-cut outfit. And as her outfit evolved, they closed up the top piece around her neck, but they left that low cut there, and it just turned. It just turned into that window.
Easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm still sick as hell.
Okay.
Oh.
At least he's not getting overexcited about what he's looking at. You know, the story with Ultra Humanite just... It made some levels of sense, but in others it was just really kind of odd. I mean, I understand that he wanted to transfer his brain out of the albino ape it was sitting in. Not kidding, look it up. And transfer into hers, but that also made me ask the question, wow, why her? I mean, I don't know if they have some kind of personal beef. I'm not that well versed in her history. But in addition to, if he's got to pick a body, why didn't he pick one... I don't know. Is he having some gender identity issues I'm not aware of, or was Superman unavailable this day?
I have no idea. I mean, she is Kryptonian. Maybe he doesn't want to jack with Superman. Who knows?
All right, I just didn't understand that particular choice, especially since he was always so denigrating about her, about just generally being a woman. I mean, the character of Ultra Humanite in this was definitely misogynist.
I'm going to go back to Shakespeare on this. I think he doth protest too much.
Okay. You know, I'm not sure. I tried to enjoy this more than I did. I like the concept of Power Girl quite a bit. I feel like there was a misfire here.
I don't know about that.
I think there was a lack of continuity because we did have those missing issues where her backstory was actually ironed out.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like there was a chunk of the plot missing that would have actually helped clarify some of the stuff. It skips around, and yeah, that was a weird choice. Ape to Power Girl. I mean, yeah, it'd be an upgrade in looks, but I don't know where he's going with that.
The cranial scars, though, that would ruin that hairline.
Yeah, you know.
Wasn't doing him any favors either. I mean, the implied bestiality between him right after he became an ape and this character Satana, I wasn't aware of.
Yeah. That character is damaged.
Yeah. And coming from a guy that used to read a lot of anime and manga, that was a weird choice.
Yeah.
So damaged. Oh my god. I think she actually prefers the ape.
Yeah. I also didn't quite understand the controls of the Ultra Humanite ship that was the gigantic 50,000 leagues under, or 40,000 leagues under the sea organ there.
Yeah. It was a cross between Phantom of the Opera and the movie. I was like,
Yeah.
what?
It's like only someone of my advanced intellect can pilot it. Or Keith Richards.
Or Phantom of the Opera.
Oh,
Freaking
God.
Barry Manilow could take over the world with this thing.
Poor Humanite, man. He was in rough shape right around this time.
Yeah, he was awfully talkative for something with no skin.
Yeah.
You know, he was just one gigantic raw nerve that she was dragging around by the neck. I would have thought the screaming would have been deafening.
I'm glad that they they brought Tara into this. I really liked the version of Tara that Amanda had put into this book. And I was a big fan of all the interactions between them. Excuse me.
Was this something else we were missing from the Infinite Crisis? I remember the character's introduction, but this was another case where something just kind of appeared, and I was going, wait, what year is this?
Yeah, you know what? When this happened, she did kind of just pop out of nowhere. She probably popped up in some event book that I didn't read, maybe 52, that weekly series.
Okay.
She probably popped up during that. But she made her way over to these books and kind of became Power Girl's pal, sidekick. And it worked out so well that when New 52 came about, excuse me, and they got rid of this Terra character, Amanda and her husband went and got Harley Quinn and kind of yanked her into a special book that, well, it felt special because it was like old school Power Girl, even though we had this other Power Girl that was kind of running around.
Mm-hmm.
The Power Girl they brought into this was definitely the one that we're talking about right now. She kind of just got yanked out of old continuity, brought into this book to be this story point, and then kind of put away again. But yeah, they kind of replaced Tara with Harley Quinn, and even to this day, Power Girl and Harley Quinn kind of have this connection.
Okay.
So which Tara was this? That wasn't the Teen Titan Tara, was it?
No, she was an alien.
Okay.
This Tara was an alien, and they tried to differentiate between the two. The fact that obviously the alien Tara had black hair versus Teen Titans, who was blonde.
I thought she was some kind of genetic duplicate with Tara Markova's DNA.
No, not that I'm aware of. She's some kind of strange alien thing that has really no connection to Markov.
Huh.
Dear DC, please pick different names. There's lots of them out there.
I know. But she was adorable as hell, and I'm sad that they got to get rid of her.
Okay. Well, we're running a bit long here. Casey, what do you think of this final number score here?
Current situations aside, and of course the problem with Soups aside, everything that's positive about this book is still overwhelmingly positive for me, so I'm going to give it a 9.
Okay. Joanna, what'd you think?
Yeah, I wanted to like it. I like Power Girl as a character, but this one just kind of flopped for me. Part of me was screaming at her, no, you don't need him to define you. You wanted to kind of shake her as a woman to woman, just kind of smack her around a bit. I mean, that would be bad for me. But anyway.
It'd be entertaining to watch you try, for sure.
Oh, I would try. I would put forth maximum effort, but it would ultimately go wrong. I would give it a 4, honestly. The lack of continuity, the lack of, I don't know, they just didn't capture Power Girl as I know her,
Okay.
Yeah.
I struggle with this one. I like you. I was expecting something different, and I thought her lack of confidence really her lack of confidence just hurt my appreciation of the character in general. And I just feel like there's a number of directions that could be gone with her, but somehow DC just hasn't figured out what to do with this character yet. I'd have to give it a 6.5. And I don't give that lightly, but the biggest problem I had was that just when I thought we were going to read her origin, again, as we've talked about, they just kind of skipped over that part because it was inconvenient in this miniseries, or in this trade, even though it felt like it was a central part of the story. And that shift really bugged me the most. Let me see. Next week, I asked Joanna to come up with what we're going to read next week. What do you have?
I would like to cover the Power Rangers.
Oh my God! Somehow I knew this was coming.
Yeah.
Which
you
book?
want to just do the first 7?
First 7?
Yeah, I would like to do the Shattered Grid, but you kind of have to start at the beginning, and Shattered Grid doesn't start until 25, so...
Isn't Shattered Grid, ongoing right now?
Yes, but 25 is where it starts.
Oh, boy, yeah, that just came out, so yeah, that's kind of hard to review right now.
Right.
Okay. Why 7 instead of 6? Is there a story arc that is 7 parts?
I just picked a number. Sometimes we do 7, right?
Well,
don't we?
I usually try to figure out whole story arcs to read.
Oh. The thing is, it is a story arc that leads up to Shattered Grid. So that'd be kind of hard to separate it.
Okay, well, as soon as we sign off here, we'll figure out how many issues the first story arc is, and that's what we'll read through. Is that the Boom Studios book?
Yes, Boom Studios. The Mighty Morphin, not the Go-Go. There are 2 series.
I'm going to learn so much. Okay.
Yes.
So next week it'll be the first story arc of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Thank you very much for tuning in. I invite you to come back and listen to more as we go through the case files. I am Jeremy.
I'm Joanna.
And I'm Casey.
Have a great one, everybody. I'll find my morpher.
I have 3 here.
Oh, surprise, surprise.